I'm Alex Howard.
And I'm Amanda Silver. And this is Dirty Laundry.
So I'm getting a new tattoo.
Wait, what?
I know. And
oh my gosh.
It kind of ties into today's guest.
Wait,
so that's what I'm telling
you. Is it my name?
Oh my God, can you imagine?
Is it a picture of me?
It is Amanda in a love heart with like an arrow through it.
Oh my gosh.
Like Bob, like the biker guys. That's
is it going to be right here?
No, it's absolutely not.
Okay.
No. So every night, pretty much every night, I listen to what I call my sleep boyfriend. His name is Shamir Anderson.
Okay.
And it's like an Audible podcast.
Okay.
And it's called Sleep Sound.
Okay.
With Shamir Anderson. And so every night, me and Shamir tuck right in, get super comfy, cozy, and he puts me to sleep, basically.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And it's so fun.
And you fall asleep listening to him.
Fall asleep. Like, so I as you know, I turn my phone off and I have like the do not disturb and stuff.
I do know. I know
so
that
all
very
of
well.
my whole phone is turned off. So I have to go, it's like, remind me in 1 minute, remind me in 15 minutes. Do you ever, anyways.
Okay.
Like, because your apps are blacked out.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't do that.
So I go, remind me in 15 minutes, and then it turns off. So I always know my sleep story is just going to be 15 minutes.
Okay.
My goal, I love to compete against myself.
Can I fall asleep before it?
Yes. So if the sleep story ends, like, damn it, I'm still awake.
Wouldn't that keep you up?
And I failed. No? You'd be surprised.
You think you'd keep it because you're conscious. If I have something going on, like an appointment, there's too much pressure.
Yeah. No, Shamir, he has a magical voice.
Tell me all about Shamir.
Well, so one of his episodes, he's talking about we're like set on this beach in Brazil, and it's 5 a.m. and the sun is rising.
What is going on in this story?
It's so good.
What are you and Shamir up to?
Go find Shamir. You won't regret it. But so he has this one line, and it's like you're standing there in sublime solitude, and I'm like, oh, this is my happy space.
Sublime solitude.
All I want is like sublime solitude. And I really think it's like the era of my life where it's just so chaotic and the kids and the dog and
quiet.
Just like I just want to be alone for like 5 minutes. So that's what I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get the sublime solitude written on me.
And where?
Still a TBD.
Oh, okay.
I'm playing around with like locations and how it looks.
Yeah.
Because it's a pretty big commitment.
I like the fine, that like super fine.
A script.
Yeah, like the script.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's my latest tattoo.
Do you find, I mean, I don't have any tattoos, but do you find that it's like one leads to the next?
Yes,
like I hear that like once you start, you can't stop.
Yeah.
Like you want another one just to feel. And what is it? Yeah. Is it you're chasing that sense of like completeness that like once I have another tattoo, then I'm good.
Oh, interesting.
What do you think it
not
is?
For me. No, no. And I think as we do here on Dirty Laundry, breaking down the stigma, I don't think people need to have a meaning or some like big story of like, oh, this was a life-changing moment and I wanted to capture it on my skin forever. Sometimes I'm like, do you like a pickle? Put it on. Do you think that is cute? Great. Like who the fuck cares, right?
Who cares? It's your body. Who cares?
And are you going to regret it when I'm 80? Like, are you kidding me? Think of all of the decisions we make in our life that we may or may not regret when we're 80.
99 problems in the tattoo ain't one.
Exactly.
And also, with tech today, you can get things removed.
For
so
sure,
if you don't like it, like it's almost like dyeing your hair.
Yeah.
Like if you don't like it, you can get it lasered, right?
Yeah.
So switch it up. I don't know what that process is like, but
it's real painful.
I can't. Well, of course it's painful.
It's like undoing your marriage. It's very, very painful. But see, literally, people get married sooner than they would get a divorce. They get a tattoo. And like, to me, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Like,
or they have a kid sooner than they would get married.
I know.
And I'm always like, oh yeah, we're having a child together, but we don't really want the commitment of marriage. I'm like, let's back up a bit. You can get unmarried, fairly quickly.
Yeah.
But having a kid together is forever, just like a just like a tattoo, I guess.
Just like a tattoo.
Okay. So when is this happening?
Well, that's a TBD.
Do you need to hold your hand?
It's so cute.
I would love to hold your hand.
You know what though? You might get tempted.
No.
You would?
No tats for me.
You're a purist, eh?
It's partially religious too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're not supposed to. Jewish people are not supposed to get
Shocker,
tattoos.
Yeah.
But of course, so many people have.
Is it
them.
like destroying like what God made or something?
You're not supposed to like maim your body in some way. But again, there's an argument to be said that piercings are the same. But so there's that.
Would you let your kids?
No. I mean, let them. I mean,
Yeah,
when
I
they're
know.
older, they can do what they want.
Listen, I got my first one when I was 16 and 100% forged a
you have to be
parental signature.
18. Yeah, like your kids are going to do what they want.
The tattoo parlor was called Art of Torture. So
Art?
yeah, they were not exactly checking IDs.
Yes. Listen, like
It
you
was
can,
so
yeah,
fun.
but like I'm always so interested in people's what they have and the stories behind them.
But
So.
even that, I was like, yeah, I went with my friend Gwen because we just like really wanted
It's like
a tattoo
for shits and giggles.
like legit. We're like, hey, it's Saturday night. What are we gonna do?
Or
Let's
like,
go get a tat.
was it a drunken choice?
No, this one was not. This one was
I
not.
always find that so funny when you see people who are like they're all drunk and they're getting tats
And
and,
that's
they realize
your first instinct
and
once you're drinking.
yeah, and they realize that, like they spelled something wrong
God,
or like
the
they've regretted it.
That's when you need the removal.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
or like when they misspell. Oh,
If they're misspelling, you're
yeah. No.
Yeah.
But anyways, the whole point of that was to say today we have on such a brilliant expert. Sleep is something that we all need
Yes.
and we all don't get because life is insane.
Yep.
And so she's going to teach us how to sleep better.
Okay, so welcome Alanna to Dirty Laundry, the sleep expert. And this is our first time having a sleep expert on the show. We've had financial experts, legal experts, sex experts, beauty experts, and we've never had a sleep one. So welcome.
Yeah. And how does one become a sleep expert?
Well, how does one so I started my company's Goodnight Sleep Site. I started Goodnight Sleep Site when my eldest was born. She's now 17, just going to university in
my
September.
goodness.
Talk about sleepless nights.
Yeah.
That's going to give me those. So I started, sleep training. The industry wasn't really around then, 17 years ago. It was very much kind of learn from books and learn from speaking to people. And that's what I did to get her sleeping better. And then it was something that I just then started helping friends and friends of friends. And people were contacting me that I didn't even know who they were. And once I got then pregnant with my twins, who are now 13, almost 14, got certified. So became a certified sleep consultant and started Goodnight Sleep Site. And now we have consultants throughout Canada and the US. And my focus right now, majority of Goodnight Sleep Site is working with babies and children and toddlers. But my focus is on women and teens and tweens, specifically midlife women, and corporate sleep. I do a lot of corporate sleep health education as well.
Really?
That's so interesting
cool.
because usually when you hear of a sleep expert, you associate them with babies and toddlers, right? We all talked about sleep training our kids. I didn't do such a great job at sleep training.
I
couldn't listen to the cry it out. But you don't often think about adults who really could, or teens who could benefit from some sleep help.
I mean, everyone needs sleep, right? They say it's like the most restorative, healing part of the human experience. And our world is set up so that we don't sleep. I mean, it's just whether it's the stress of the day or of the life, or we're sold all these bills of goods that you need all of these gadgets and gizmos in order to have a sleep. And I just think, I don't know, where are we gone? Where have we gone wrong?
We definitely are a sleep deprived society. But as you said, sleep is one of the, in my opinion, it's not just because of what I do, but in my opinion, is probably the most important pillar of health. So if we look at pillars of health, we look at nutrition, exercise, sleep, connection. I talk about that a lot now. I think in the past 5 to 7 years, I think if life has shown us anything, it's how important community and connection, day-to-day connection is. And when we're not sleeping well, we're not making great nutritional choices. So our body has a harder time digesting food and metabolizing food. And, we crave more sugars and more carbs, and we make more poor choices when it comes to our nutrition. We don't have the energy to move our bodies, which physical activity is so important in dealing with stress management and helping us sleep better. And then let's be honest, when we haven't been sleeping well, we're not a joy to be around. No. So the connection is down, right? We don't want to interact, or people don't want to interact with us. We're more moody, more irritable. So sleep is a really important fundamental in our overall health and well-being. And I think it's only, I don't want to say recently, I will say I have seen a shift in the past 5 to 7 years, which is why now I put such a focus on adult sleep health. Is we have seen a shift in how serious people are taking their sleep health like they do their nutrition health and their physical health, which we know is also very important. And they're putting more stock into it, which I love seeing. Why is sleep becoming such an issue? As you said, stress management is at an all-time high or stress is at an all-time high for a lot of us for many different reasons. And we are such a connected society. I mean, we are always consuming all hours of the day, from the moment we wake up till the moment we go to bed. And that impacts our sleep for sure.
Yeah. Social media doesn't sleep. And right. And it's not like
24-hour news
it's
cycle.
It's not like back when we were growing up and like the TV got the fuzzy, it would go fuzzy at like 2 a.m. or whatever it was. And you're like, okay, well, everyone's sleeping.
Remember those
now.
colored bars?
The colored bars. Yeah. You hear shh. And so you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to sleep. There's nothing else to do. But it's like you could be up scrolling and interacting with people at all hours of the night all over the world. So you really have to be mindful of it.
Yeah. So for parents that are listening, can we talk for a second about sleep training? Like,
we sure can.
In that infancy phase, I want to go through all of them.
Yeah.
But okay, so I didn't. Like, I just didn't do it.
I tried.
I was just like, this, I don't know. This is wacky. I'm like, just come and snuggle. I couldn't do it. How important is that? Are we actually teaching these babies how to self-soothe, or are we setting them up for like dreading going to sleep and abandonment issues, et cetera, et cetera?
So in terms of sleep training, it's never my job to convince any parent to sleep train their child. It's definitely a choice, because let's be honest, it can be difficult. You guys know, we all know, people who have tried it who are listening know it's a difficult process. So our job at Goodnight Sleep Site is never to like drag a parent. We never want to drag a parent through the process or convince them. Our job is to educate them on what are the abilities and capabilities of their child, and educate them on why we're taking each step, so that they then become their child's sleep expert and they understand why we're taking this step. So, majority of the parents that come to us are parents who have done research, who are ready to sleep better, and who are willing to try sleep training. Sleep training gets a bad rap because often when we think of sleep training, we're thinking of cry it out. We're thinking of all the bad things that are associated with sleep training. I will say, I don't have a specific study on me right now, but I can get you one. Sleep training will not mean that your child does not think you love them, will not have abandonment issues moving forward. Unfortunately, a lot of studies that are shown against sleep training are studies that are done on children who are going through toxic stress, children of abandonment, children of neglect. That's not what's happening when we're sleep training our kids. I have been doing this since 2007. I've worked with thousands of families, and I will say not one of those families have shown me that they don't love their child and don't have strong attachment with their child. They're just choosing to take the sleep training route. So 3 nights of sleep training, a week of sleep training isn't going to undo all of that. But so much is more involved in the process of sleep training than just the method that we choose. Where in terms of sleep environment, in terms of age-appropriate schedules, we work with the entire 24-hour day rather than just focusing on what's happening at night.
I heard somewhere, when I had my babies, that like sleep begets sleep, right? So if you can make sure that they're on a good nap schedule throughout the day, it will help you at night.
Oh my God. Remember like nap jail?
I'm getting like pulled back into that mindset of like your whole life revolves around those nap schedules. And, I tried the cried out. I couldn't do it. And so, are there other methods to sleep training other than the cried out?
100%. There are methods where you are fully involved in the process. It's a method that we call sit and settle, where you're actually in the room with the child until the child falls asleep. There's the middle of the road method, where you're doing kind of an interval check. And then there can be, a cry it out, a pure extinction method. Again, we want parents to choose a method that they're comfortable using because, like I said, I never want to pull a parent through it. They have to be comfortable, or they're not going to be consistent, because consistency is key. But we also have to choose a method that works best for baby and for child. And that's not always, I'll be honest, the method that the parents want to use, right? So if you being more involved is kind of resetting baby and making baby cry more for longer periods of time, then maybe there's too much involvement. So there definitely are methods where parents are very involved, methods that parents aren't as involved. But like you said, sleep equals sleep. So often when we're focusing on night sleep and night wakings, two things are happening. One is sleep's getting lost somewhere. So do we need to work on more consistent and consolidated naps? Do we need to move bedtime up? I am a huge early bedtime pusher. If anyone's listening right now and has a child who isn't sleeping, put them to bed earlier. Or is there association, right? So what does baby need to happen in order to fall asleep? Feeding to sleep, rocking to sleep, and all of those things. So that's what we're working on with parents.
So how important is a nighttime routine? Regardless of age, let's just like that sort of, I don't know, sleep hygiene, whatever the terminology would be. Does the repetition of a routine start to train our minds, our bodies into getting into sleep mode? Are there ways to create a routine that really sets you up for success?
100%, I think routine's important. If we're going as young as baby to toddler, even to child, preparing them for bedtime, I think is important. Bringing that stimulation down, incorporating calming and relaxing activities to help kind of quiet their body and mind is important. Bedtime is often the time of day where a family can connect. Because let's be honest, families are busy, right? Yeah. Your parents, you're both working, you're kind of two ships sailing, your kids have extracurriculars and all of this stuff. Or you're working all day and you don't really get to see your kids because maybe they're at daycare or they're in school. And bedtime is that time where you can be together, whether it be with your child, whether it be with your partner, whether it be with yourself. So creating that bedtime routine for your child is like filling their tank before they go to bed with love. Sleep training doesn't mean you can't cuddle and have that time with your child at bedtime. That time's important and that time should be incorporated. For us as adults, we incorporate these amazing routines with our kids, but then we don't do it for ourselves. Yeah. And that's so important. Yeah. Again, it's hard to go from 100 to 0. So we have to give our own body and mind time to relax and calm down and get into that bed state of mind. To get a good night of sleep, to fall asleep a lot easier as well.
As parents, we often ignore that. I'm like, I finally got the kids down. Okay. Now I'm going to go on TikTok or social media or watch something. And so I'm stimulating my brain because I haven't been able to do that, during the day. And so that's my me time. And before you know it, an hour, 2 hours has gone by and I'm like, I got to get to bed. And you don't have that downtime. Yeah. I know you're very good with your sleep. No, she's laughing because she's great. She's like, I can't message her after 9. Her phone's on Do Not Disturb. She is getting ready for bed. I'm up late. I'm a night owl.
We're complete polar opposites.
But I have been making more of a conscious effort to prioritize my sleep. And I especially find as a single mom, when I'm with my kids, it's even more important because my energy just gets depleted. Yeah. So, whereas once my kids were down, I'd go and watch a show or a couple episodes of something. Now I'm like, no. They're down. Now I'm going down. Like, I need to. I need to get to bed because I know they're going to be up early and I'm going to have to face my day plus work and everything else. So I'm really trying to prioritize that. But you have to be conscious of it.
Yeah. And as a parent, when you only get such limited amount of alone time, you want to maximize. You want to fill that time with everything you didn't get to do.
You want to unwind, from the whole day. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, well, there was a big thing that was going around called like the bedtime revenge procrastination or bedtime procrastination revenge. And I get it. So listen, the Alanna, maybe 5-7 years ago was, my number one tip was always get rid of tech at bedtime.
Yeah.
And it still is. If you are listening to this and you are really struggling with your sleep, like you need to make some changes to your sleep health, that is probably the biggest tip is just give yourself that tech curfew, 60 minutes before bed, remove it from your bedroom, do all of the things. But I would feel bad giving that information because here I was with 3 little kids.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying. Like they go to bed and it's suddenly your job's done, your responsibilities are done, the house is cleaned up. Like you finally have that you time that you don't necessarily get during the day, which is why it's also so important to make sure you incorporate some of that me time during the day. Yeah. But that could be another conversation. It's like, don't tell me I can't watch my favorite show right? And don't tell me I can't. I want to do these things. That's my way of like decompressing from the day. So it's important, like you are doing now, is setting those boundaries, right? And what are we consuming throughout the day?
Yeah.
If there's a TV show that makes you feel good, we all have like our feel good sitcoms that help us. What is your
Gilmore Girls?
Gilmore Girls.
We're the same.
I love it.
It's my like therapy. It's like I just like will turn it on and I'm just like, I'm in Stars Hollow and I'm happy, and it's just like it's like a cozy blanket. I love it.
I love that. I'm almost embarrassed to say what mine is.
No,
but mine is Little House on the Prairie. I love
so cute.
so much. I'm like, we're binging it right now, me and my boyfriend, and he'd be so embarrassed if I just said that about him. But he loves it too. Like if it's gonna help you forget the day, watch an episode, but don't binge an entire season before you go to bed, right?
Yeah.
If there's social media accounts that make you feel good, go down the hole a little bit, but set boundaries. If news, like the news is triggering with everything, don't
watch
the
it
headlines
before bed.
Yeah. So set those boundaries, but not all tech is bad, I will say.
Can we talk for a minute about sleep tech, like wearable tech? I use my Apple Watch. I unfortunately can't sleep with it because I sleep on my hand and my face and whatever. So I have no ability to track my sleep. Do we need to, or is this just like another marketing ploy? You were asking about the Oura Ring
Oura
before.
Ring,
Like, do we need this shit, or are we again just being sold some nonsense? And really, the better thing to do is just stop with everything and go to sleep.
I mean, sleep product and especially sleep tech product, but sleep products is definitely on the rise in retail. I have a love-hate relationship with the wearable devices because what I love about them is that they are making people focus on their sleep health, which is a great thing, right? Like I said, we're putting more stock into our sleep health. We're really wanting to make those changes. And whether it be like the Apple Watch or the Fitbit or the Oura Ring, we're aware of what we maybe need to do or not need to do. The thing I hate about it though is it giving us the best information? No. If you really want to track your sleep, the number way of doing that is through an EEG. So this is, monitoring your brain waves and actually having a sleep study done.
Right.
I don't feel in terms of the world of technology that we're there yet. We probably will be. It seems like in a very short period of time, probably. But we're not quite there yet. And what I don't like about it is it can make someone, here I am talking about sleep, but I also don't want people to be hyper focused on their sleep health because that
too much pressure.
When you focus on something, you focus on it, and then that can have the opposite effect. So it's like a balance.
It elevates your stress, your anxiety about, maybe now. And again, it's not giving you the most accurate information. So you think you're not sleeping well, but maybe you did. I always base it off, how do you feel in the morning? How do you feel throughout the day? That is a better signal to whether I'm getting a good night of sleep or not than wearing these devices.
Yeah, and it seems like it's really personal. Everyone's got their own, let's say, needs, in and around sleep. And so some folks, for example, they can have caffeine right before bed and it doesn't affect them. Other people need to cut themselves off at 1 cup only until 9 a.m. Like, I know.
I can do that.
Like, so what?
So jealous.
Talk to us maybe like about some bodily cues. Like, for example, in yoga, when you're lying there and it's like, do a body scan and feel where you're feeling tension or stress or whatever. What are some like really easy, I don't know, tips or whatever that can allow our listeners to look inward at maybe what those cues are that they're overlooking?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about like what's the right quantity of sleep that you need, what's the right quality of sleep that you need, like you said, everyone has their own personal sleep needs. So the amount of sleep that I need might be different than you. I think if you're gauging it, we hear 7 to 8 hours. It's kind of that blanket amount that people need. I like to kind of broaden that out to about 6 to 9 hours. Mm-hmm. Some people I think can thrive off of 6 hours of sleep. I think if you are an individual who thinks you can get away with maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep per night, what can also happen is the less sleep. It's kind of like when you drink, right? The more you drink, your tolerance for alcohol increases. Well, the more you're kind of depriving your body of sleep, the more your body will feel okay on that amount of sleep because that's what it's given. It's learned to function off of that amount of sleep. But what's going on could be telling you a different story. So aiming for that 6 to 9. And again, I think the biggest cue is don't rate it off how you feel in the morning, because no one is waking up like Snow White singing with the birds. Whether you're well rested or not, that is just not happening. But how are you feeling throughout the day? You know, never mind the low energy slump at 2 p.m. because we can all feel like that for different reasons other than sleep loss. But how are you feeling throughout the day? How are you feeling day to day? If you're feeling exhausted, if you're feeling chronically tired, that's a signal to me that we need to work on the amount of sleep we're getting, and we need to work on the quality of sleep. And that could be even more important than the amount of sleep.
And the amount is the quality.
Quality, yeah.
And how do you, with, like you said, without going for a sleep study, how do you know how much REM sleep you get, or whether you have sleep apnea or some treatable condition? Like without a sleep study, there's no way of knowing.
Well, I mean, the only way of really knowing is through sleep study.
Right.
You mentioned sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is probably one of the leading sleep conditions. The only way of really diagnosing sleep apnea is through a sleep study. It's something that unfortunately often goes undiagnosed because people just think they're snorers.
Right.
But, not treating sleep apnea, which is typically done through a CPAP machine, there could be a lot of future health risks: heart attack, stroke, obesity, diabetes, just quality of life. We're talking about how we feel day to day. If you are signs and symptoms of sleep apnea, if you are, and I'm talking snoring, like if their person is sleeping beside you, can likely tell you have sleep apnea without getting a sleep study done, because you can literally hear the person stop breathing, and it's a snore that rattles the walls. And then a lot of excessive daytime sleepiness. So falling asleep at red lights in meetings. Not just like low fatigue, but actual sleep.
But not like narcolepsy.
But like you might think that you have it, right?
Yeah.
Wow. And what about like sleep tape? Because that is like everywhere now. On my Instagram feed, it's like you got to tape your mouth before you sleep. And I'm like, will I be able to breathe? Like, should I try this?
So sleep tape, no one should be taping their mouth to sleep unless they have been recommended by an actual sleep professional doctor.
Okay.
The issue that I have with that, again, and this is a TikTok trend that people have kind of adapted in order to sleep better. But what can be scary about doing that is if you have sleep tape really is what is the act of it is to force you to breathe more through your nose while you're sleeping. But if you are someone who perhaps has sinus issues, you don't breathe well through your nose, it's not going to help and actually could cause further problems. So it's definitely, in my opinion, not something that should be done unless the individual actually needs it and is prescribed it.
I heard a lot of these sleep studies were really only done on men. And so things like, the amount of sleep that an individual needs, nobody's doing these tests. Shocker. They're not doing these tests on women, and women actually do need more. Teens, they're saying like 12 hours for a teenager growing, and yet we start school at, 8:30, 9 in the morning, these poor kids. How do we know how much time? Is it really just basing it off of how we feel throughout the day, like you mentioned? Is there, I don't know.
Can you get too much sleep?
You can get too much sleep, especially this time of year.
Yeah. So what happens
great
then?
Question.
Yeah, great question. So to go back to what you were saying about women needing more, there's actually a study that came out, and this isn't to dog any men that are listening, but women do need 20 minutes more of sleep per night. Because simply we have more tabs open in our brain, right? We exert more mental energy throughout the day. But unfortunately, it's typically women who aren't getting that amount of sleep versus men. For our teens need a lot of sleep. Adults, we can look at like 6 to 9, let's just say 7 to 8. For teens, you're still looking at like 9 to 10 hours throughout the night. And the issue with the teens is that their schedule, their life schedules, school start times, extracurriculars, work, homework, typically work against their natural biological clock. So as our teens enter puberty, when their melatonin release, melatonin is our natural sleep hormone, it's what prepares our body and mind to sleep, shifts later into the night. So a lot of parents struggle. I'm a mom of 3 teens, so I can understand this. A lot of parents struggle with the fact of like, my teen can't fall asleep until 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. And biologically, that just might be the case because their body just isn't telling them to go to sleep until that time, right?
Yeah.
As they enter adulthood, it shifts again into earlier. And then we have school start times that are so early. So in terms of calculating how much we actually need, I mean, there's no way of really saying you need exactly 6.5 hours of sleep and you need exactly 7. But again, I think if you're always working in that 6 to 9, and listen, there could be some times in your life where you just need 6. There could be some times in your life where you need a full 8 hours of sleep. If you are thinking you're getting too much at sleep, so now we're looking at like 10, 11, 12 hours, there could be other sleep issues that could be going on because of that. But if it's an act where you feel like you can't get out of bed, that's a bigger issue. That's where now we need to talk to maybe a doctor or other professionals to understand why, like, is there a mental health issue that could be going on too?
Yeah, interesting. I read a study once that was saying that our teens, the reason that they stay up later and sleep in is because from like a evolutionary standpoint, they were meant to be on night watch when we were like hunter-gatherers. So their circadian rhythm is slightly shifted. And then as they age, it kind of shifts back. I don't know if there's any validity in that, but it gave me at least some peace of mind to be like, okay, like you're fighting against natural biology. And obviously our society is just not set up because of school times, etc. So you specialize in midlife sleep.
I do. Well, we work with all ages, but I do.
Yeah. So what does that mean specifically? How do you support your clients? What does that mean?
So I work primarily through one-on-ones. We have different programs. We have a membership program that is coming out very soon as well, and really working with midlife women. I myself am a midlife woman. And what I noticed going through this transition was, we're hearing a lot about perimenopause and menopause, very important topic, something that definitely affects our sleep. But also what happens in our midlife age and stage is that we go through a lot of life changes at this stage of life, whether it be a career change, a relationship change. We're raising teens. A lot of us are caregivers for our parents. A lot of us may be experiencing empty nest. Like there's a lot of major life changes that happen at this stage that affect our sleep. So primarily my work is through sleep and stress management because a lot of these bigger issues increase our stress levels, which doesn't allow us to sleep well. So I typically work with midlife women to help them sleep better, to support their stress management, to help them learn better coping skills. Not all stress is bad. Stress is normal, something we experience every day, but how do we respond to it? How do we learn proper strategies to cope with it in order to sleep better? And then I do a lot of corporate too. So I work with a lot of corporate companies through lunch and learns and things like that in working on sleep health.
So you mentioned obviously hormones, this transition for women as they enter into peri and then menopause. Our hormones obviously, goes without saying, play such an important role. You mentioned melatonin as this sort of sleep hormone. Is this something that's also getting a bit messed up because of our hormonal changes? Like, are they all sort of intersecting in a clusterfuck of disaster?
And teens are going through hormonal changes
Total
as well.
Hormonal changes, yeah.
Like, who planned that, right? Let's go through menopause while our teens go through puberty, right? Like,
someone's laughing somewhere.
Right? Yeah. So I always preface to say I'm not a hormone expert. This is why I have hormone experts that help me with my programs. So, but to kind of give you a broad view of it, absolutely. A loss as we experience that loss of estrogen, that affects our melatonin when our melatonin is released. When we have higher than usual levels of stress, so our stress hormone is cortisol. Yeah. Cortisol is not something that we need to eliminate from our body. It's not something we should be eliminating from our body. It's something that we need to thrive, just like we need melatonin to thrive. But when we are going through a more stressful period in our life, or when we see that shift in hormones as we are experiencing, say, a loss in estrogen or something like that, it doesn't allow us to properly regulate our cortisol levels. So we could see a higher increase in cortisol levels throughout the day than we usually would have. What happens is as we're entering the bedtime hours, typically those cortisol levels suppress and our melatonin levels increase to help prepare our body and mind to sleep. But if you're going to bed with higher than usual cortisol levels, that balance is now off and we're not able to release enough melatonin to help us get a great night of sleep. And again, focusing on that quality of sleep. So this is where we need to kind of manage those cortisol levels. So whether that be through HRT, whether that be through different stress management tools that we can incorporate throughout the day. So much of what we do throughout the day and in the morning can actually help us sleep better at night.
Like supporting our adrenals and things like that.
Yeah,
what about taking melatonin? Like if you have those high levels of cortisol, you're in a very high stress, situation transition in your life. Is it helpful to get some external help by taking melatonin?
The thing with melatonin and taking it is it's very rare for us to be deficient. I will start off to say it is very rare for us to be deficient in melatonin. I do feel that melatonin does hold a place. We all have a 24-hour clock, an internal 24-hour clock, right? That clock never shifts with time changes, with anything. It runs off of really our solar environment. So when, the sun is at noon, it's at its highest. That helps sync our natural 24-hour clock. So our melatonin never really shifts. It's very rare for us to be deficient in melatonin. So when you're taking a supplement form of melatonin, you're not taking likely the right dose. It's not being released in your body in the same way. Melatonin is very much marketed as like a sleeping pill. Taking melatonin isn't going to automatically make you feel tired. It's just going to help reset your clock if your clock is a little bit off schedule. So like I said, there is a place for it for those who travel, go through different time zones. If you're on certain medications, a lot of kids maybe that are on the spectrum or taking ADHD medication. We're seeing an increase now in adults taking ADHD medication. It can play a role in that, but it's not normally something that I go to right away. I'd like to see other changes. Let's work with our external environment to help naturally release melatonin. It's a natural hormone. So when you're taking a pill form, you're basically taking a supplemental hormone.
And
so I don't think people think of.
Let's talk then about these sort of external things in our lives as we sleep. A lot of our listeners are going through divorce. This is an incredibly stressful time in their life. How can we set ourselves up if we're not taking supplements or, substances? For me, I like a white noise machine. I listen to a sleep story before bed. I've heard that there's certain musical notes or wavelengths or decibels, I don't even know the terminology, but that should aid in that sleep. At what point are these helpful? And then at what point do we become dependent on them and our body doesn't know how to do it itself? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all born with the ability to sleep. And I think providing some extra tools as we get older to help us fall asleep a little easier. I don't think the concern should be too much that you're dependent on those tools. Again, not hyper-focused on them.
Right.
But using certain tools can help. Going through something major like a divorce, I know that was something that I went through that really affected my sleep. It was, I was always a relatively good sleeper, not because of just what I do, just sleep came pretty naturally to me. And it wasn't until I was going through my divorce where my sleep really took a hit. So things that work for me, things that work with clients that I deal with in that midlife space is one, setting up that environment. Your environment is probably the most powerful tool that you can utilize to help you sleep better that you don't even realize. So you should have that instant connection when you walk into your bedroom of sleep and relaxation, right? Of calmness and peace, especially when you're going through something toxic like a divorce, right? Your bedroom could be your one safe space, and you want to try and make it into that safe space as best you can. It could be, I always say focus on your five senses. So what do you need to see, hear, taste, touch, smell, to bring in that calming and relaxing environment? So really focusing on a great sleep environment. And a lot of what you do throughout the day is going to help you sleep better, like I mentioned before. So getting in that physical activity, we want to build a really strong drive for sleep. That's going to help us fall asleep a lot easier. It's going to help us stay asleep a lot better throughout the night. So think of your sleep drive like a gas tank. We all wake up with it empty. We need to fill that sleep gas throughout the day. So ways of doing that is through physical activity. Focusing on your own physical health when you're going through something like that is important. So incorporating daily activity is pretty important.
I like that. That's a good tip. We forget about this all throughout the day. You're
That would
setting
be
yourself
mindful
up
of
for the
that,
night.
of making sure that you got enough. People are concerned about, like, oh, better get enough steps in or cut my caffeine. But I like the idea of setting up your sleep environment. I think that that's something that's an easier thing to do than maybe cutting that cup of coffee.
Yeah, we're not cutting out the coffee. That's not happening. It's interesting though, because one of the things that Amanda and I often recommend for our clients who are approaching telling their kids about divorce is we always say, don't do it in their safe space, like their bedroom. And so I think, that just sort of reiterates this whole idea of you need to have a place where you really can truly let it all hang out, kick off your heels, and feel safe and comfortable enough to really get a good night's sleep.
And for people who are recently separated and they're still living together, they can't get that.
Yeah.
They don't have that oasis that they're always on. The person who they are in conflict with is in
bed with them, literally.
Either in bed with them or in the next room.
That was not my case.
Right? Or let's say they're in the basement or you're sleeping with your, in your kid's room, or like it's all, disjointed. So, and you might not know how long you're going to live like that. Yeah. So how, when you're in that like really toxic, sort of stressful environment, how on earth do you get a night's sleep?
I mean, listen, you can't say that going through something like that with that kind of situation, listen, there's going to be nights where you're not sleeping well, 100%. Yeah. And that will also carry afterwards too. It takes you a while to get out of that stage. Yeah. It happens 100%. But even after there is something to be said about that PTSD after that experience like that, right? That can affect your sleep. So really, again, focusing then on what can you do to be the healthiest that you can be, knowing that there's going to be very trying times, there's going to be very toxic times, and there's likely going to be nights where you're not sleeping well because of the situation that you're in. So proper nutrition, proper physical health, taking the supplements that you need to take, therapy. I cannot stress that enough. If you can access therapy, if you can afford therapy, I know, unfortunately, not everybody can, but if you can, that could be a saving grace during a situation like this. Just having a community where you can really lean on and rely on, and know that in that situation, if you're not sleeping great, if you are in an environment that doesn't promote calmness and relaxation, know that will one day be over. Yeah. You will get past that. I know that's something that I really struggled with, because when you're living with them and it's taking 1.5 to 2 years, you're thinking this is never going to end. Right. This is my life. Like, know, but it does. Yeah. It does. And you can get on the other side of it for sure and sleep well again.
And firsthand. So thank you. This has been so good. Such great tips. I love it.
Amazing tips. And if any of our listeners want to work with you, get a hold of you, where can they find you?
They can find me at AlannaMcGinn.com. You can find all my sleep programs and corporate programs there. You can follow me on Instagram, Alanna.McGinn. I'm also going to give you a link to an amazing free email course that you can sign up for to rid those 3 a.m. wakings.
Awesome. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. You've given us so much to sleep on. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver. Produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.